So hello again, my name is Annie Hedgpeth, and I am a cloud automation engineer at 10th Magnitude. What? 10th Magnitude? So as you can see, there's my last year's GitHub. It only went through January because that's when I made this image, but I'm going to use my GitHub history as a way of telling my story. And how I got to become a cloud automation engineer at 10th Magnitude. Okay, so a little background about me. By the way, this is going to be a story, so no demos here or anything. Sorry if you really wanted one. I'm sure that Adam could give you one later. Anyway, before last year, I had no background in technology at all. So I have my degree in film, and my first job out of college was as a casting director. And then I was planning to stay home with kids because I was pregnant with my first kid. And while I was pregnant with my first kid, I worked on this film. Has anyone seen it? There Will Be Blood? Best movie ever. So it was up for a couple Academy Awards, like Best Actor and Best Film of the Year and stuff like that. It was really good. When you're a casting director in Dallas, you get a lot of Walmart commercials and Home Depot commercials and B movies and scary movies and stuff like that. And so when I got this script and I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this one's a good one. And so, they didn't even send it over email. You had to have a FedEx hard copy of it because they didn't want it spread. It was so good. So we did locations casting though. So I didn't get to meet Daniel Day-Lewis. So locations casting means you just cast everybody that's not a Hollywood actor, basically. And so, so I worked my butt off on this film because I wanted to do a really good job, and it was awesome. And went to Marfa, Texas, if anyone's ever heard of that, because we were looking for the little boy in the movie. And so, long story short, it took forever. A year and a half later, it comes out in the movies, and me and my husband are watching it. And like any good film person, you wait until all the credits are over before you leave. And I got to the casting credits, and if you'll notice, no one named Annie is on this slide. And I think I sat there and shed a few tears in that theater because I was really super frustrated. Because my boss, who I subcontracted it through, didn't do a ton on the job, and I did all the work, but she got the credit and I didn't, so whatever. But that's the way it goes in film, and that's the way it goes with long-tail careers. You work your butt off, you get paid peanuts, and you don't get much validation for it. And so after that, I did some home decorating. As I was staying home, I did some home decorating. I used power tools and made all these cool, fun projects and stuff. But the point of it is that I kept on going into all of these long-tail careers. I did writing, blogging, and things like that. And y'all know what a long-tail career is, like acting and music and writing and all of those things. The vast majority of people earn very little doing those things. And a handful of people, like my boyfriend Jude Law, earn most of the money doing it, right? And so, and as we all know with tech careers as well, there's a bit of a long tail in that, but most of the people are, and this was just like a little, this is not to scale, I just drew this myself. So, but this is kind of how I see tech careers. It's pretty more stable and making more than the tail of the creative type of long tail careers. So it was because of this reality that my husband was trying to convince me to get into technology, because he saw that really OCD part of me that really wants to finish something and really wants to dig into a problem and solve something, and so he kept on saying that I would be good at technology. And I mean, for years I would just think he was crazy because I'm an art person. So but it got me thinking, and I was done having kids, and last year in August, all three of my kids would be in elementary school at the same time. And so I thought, that's a great time to go back to work. That's fine, you can come in. And so, okay, so now we're going to go through the calendar of last year. So now we're looking at around April last year. And I had been home at this point, full disclosure, for 10 years. I had done some entrepreneurial things like that little home decorating business that I had, and some blogging and things like that. But for the most part, my resume really super sucked. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go go back to school and get like probably my MBA or something, and to be making the money that I want to be making, and to be in a position that I wanted to be in and whatnot. So I studied for the GMAT, and just studying for the GMAT, I was like, oh my gosh, 2 years of this? Like, no offense to anybody who's gotten the GMAT, but I was just done with school. I was really done with school. And so, so on April 18th last year, I took that, and then I thought, well, let me just go ahead and take it, and then apply for graduate school, and then, you know, then I have my options, but then see what else is out there also, right? And so I did that on April 18th, but then I was just like, oh, I really hope I don't have to do this. So then on April 19th, I told you I'm kind of I took this one personality test that said I was an activator, so I do things, as soon as I think of them, I do them. So the very next day, realizing that I didn't want to go to graduate school, I said, well, let me see what's out there. So I just got on LinkedIn and I kind of saw what jobs would easily transfer from a casting career into something else, right? And so there's a reason this guy's face is blurred out, by the way. So it was an account management position that I was interviewing for. And somehow it came up that I have kids because, you know, I'm not going to hide it. And he kept on saying, and he was young, early 30s, no kids, not married. And, which is fine, great, whatever. But he kept on talking about my kids and my parental status. And he would say stuff like, oh man, I don't know how I could do it with kids. I mean, this job is just really demanding, and I travel so much, and I don't know, this just seems like a lot. And so I don't know why I felt the need to do this, but I kept on saying stuff like, oh yeah, no, we've got it figured out, me and my husband, you know, we've got plans in place, and we're good. But I could clearly see that I had lost him, and he was not interested in hiring a mother of 3 children. And so even though, just for the record, this is an aside, mothers probably, every person in this room wants a mother in their company, okay? That's like, they're some of the hardest working people I know, and they will really watch out for your back. So anyway, I left there just really defeated. I saw somebody 10 years younger than me in the waiting room who was probably going to get the job because she didn't have children. And so I left there, and I called my husband, and I was just so defeated. And I said, man, I'm not going to be able to even, my resume sucked at the time. So I said, I'm going to have to do something that is just completely different. I'm just going to have to, I'm not adding any diversity to any of these fields that I'm going into because I look the same as everybody else applying for these jobs, and I have the worst resume, right? And so I need to build up my skills in some other area, be able to provide a different mindset to another field. And so he was like, how about technology? And so I was like, oh my gosh, this again? And so, but as we all know, change happens when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. And at that point, staying the same was painful. That interview was really super painful. And so the very next, what is this? April 21st, I tried to just change my decorating website to be hosted on GitHub pages. And so I was experimenting with a little bit of HTML, and I was like, this is super hard, just the Git aspect of it. And like my husband always tells this story and embarrasses me, but I'll go ahead and embarrass myself now. I think I was so frustrated that I cried at this point and he goes, don't worry, everybody cries when they learn Git. So that made me feel a little better. So if you did cry when you learned Git, tell other people, it'll help them, it'll make them feel better. Okay, so we're still in April now, okay? And I tried my hand at Git, tried my hand with GitHub pages. I didn't use the Jekyll template yet, though, which was really what helped later. But I'll tell you about that in a minute. So then April 25th, these guys, who you might recognize, came to dinner at my house. And so the story goes that my husband works at a large point-of-sale company, and he had been, bringing the big DevOps initiative to his company and everything, and using Chef for a while, but as is pretty typical, his security people were the blocker to a lot of his initiatives. And he would come home every day and say things like, oh my gosh, this guy, like he just says no to everything. And so I would say, well, like, what does he need? Like, there's not a reason he wouldn't just be saying no for anything. I mean, he's got to be having, like, what does he need, basically? How can you meet his needs? What have you asked him that? And so anyway, a year of this, right, of him coming home and complaining and me telling him, well, why don't you, basically just trying to coach him into a little bit more empathy. And he's pretty empathetic already, and so it started working. And then InSpec started becoming a little more popular, I guess, and then Michael realized that he could show them how to use InSpec, and that now that Michael was able to see all of his infrastructure as code, now he could see all of his, now the security and compliance people could see all their compliance as code, and it's a nice marriage there. And so it worked. It was really amazing because this was literally about a year of all of this, and we had to celebrate. Like it was such a big deal that we had to celebrate. So we had somebody from Chef, we had Christoph and Dominic, we had the two security and compliance people, we had Michael's boss, and then me. I cooked for everybody. And so we took a picture there, and we were literally doing the dishes that night, taking all the dishes off the table. And Michael said, I can see it right now. Like, we were standing there at the dining room table, and he said, why don't you just learn InSpec? He said, I think that would be a really cool thing that would lower the barrier to entry for you, because it's supposed to be really super human readable. It's supposed to be easy for security and compliance people who aren't typically developers. And so you could learn it and then maybe blog about it, maybe write. Also, they have zero documentation right now, and so you could, maybe not zero, but they had very little documentation. So you could write these tutorials. As you learn about it, you could write tutorials, and it would help people to, so all of that was his idea, by the way, all of those tutorials. And I was still a little bit skeptical because, I really, I had never even opened a command line before. I didn't know anything. And so I was skeptical. And he said, look, just give it 3 weeks. Try it for 3 weeks. If you totally hate it, don't ever do it again. And, pivot to something else. And so I said, okay, well, I've got 3 weeks, right? And you can do anything in 3 weeks. So my question for you is, maybe you've been thinking of a type of person like this. Maybe it's a career change that somebody's looking to do that that you think, oh man, they've really got a developer mindset or something. And you really want to help them out. You want to help them on their journey. So how can you convince them to give you 3 weeks? Is there a problem that you have that they can solve for you? So the problems that I was solving was that, Michael's security and compliance team needed some documentation about how to get started with InSpec. And so surely you have a problem that can be solved through somebody else's learning. So start brainstorming on that. Okay, so around the same time, I was thinking, well, if I'm going to get into technology, then I need to start networking and stuff. And so I had read this blog post by a guy named Doug Ireton that used to be at Nordstrom, and now he's in consulting, but I don't know what the company is. Anyway, he wrote a blog post about encouraging women in DevOps. And he said one of the ways is that women can start organizing the DevOps Days events, which I highly recommend that y'all all go to. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll go ahead and email the DevOps Days organizers in Dallas and see if they want any help. And I was kind of nervous about it because this is a totally new world to me. And to somebody that is new to the industry, technology people can be pretty intimidating. And so I was kind of nervous about writing the email. But then 6 minutes later, they said, yes, absolutely. So I said, well, I might not be able to, write in Bash or something, but at least I can organize a conference. So, but this was so cool because this was sort of a really instrumental example of lending privilege. So Anwan Simmons gives a talk called Lending Privilege, which I highly recommend that you Google and watch on YouTube. But he talks about how if you have privilege, if you have a platform and you want to help other people, you can just bring them up to your platform and let them stand there for a little while, and now they have that platform too. And so that little act right there of them letting me be on the organizing team was them allowing me to step onto their platform. And it might not sound like a really big deal, but all those little things really, really count. And so that's another thing that I encourage you to think about is, what is your platform and who would really benefit to stand up on it? And and of course you don't want to let just anybody up on that platform with you, but who do you see a lot of potential in, and who do you see somebody that can really make a change? And if you just do these little things that loan them your privilege, then it could really move the needle for some people in their lives. Okay, so now we're looking at May, and May 1st was my very first Jekyll commit. So I started using the Jekyll templates for the GitHub pages, and it was a lot simpler for me, so I used that. So this is my website, and I started doing the InSpec tutorials like I talked about. And just that little act right there of having a Jekyll templated website was super cool, because it was more things that lowered the barrier to entry into technology for me. So I learned Markdown, super simple, right? But I had never written in it. I learned how to use Visual Studio Code, which I really love now, more than Atom, sorry, and because of all of the extensions and plugins and whatnot. And then, of course, I was learning InSpec along the way, learned how to use GitHub Pages, learned how to write in Bash. I just never even knew how to interact with the terminal. Like, it was voodoo to me, but now I love it. And then I was learning, as I was writing InSpec, I was using Test Kitchen, and so then I was remediating with Chef. So now I was learning InSpec and Chef at the same time. And because it's compliance as code and infrastructure as code, it really promotes this idea of inverted learning. So I took this one course it was a Docker course on Pluralsight by a guy named Wes Higbee, who, by the way, if you're ever taking a Pluralsight course, look for his name, because he is the best. He talked about inverted learning and how Docker is really good at helping with inverted learning. And I immediately thought of InSpec. I was like, oh, that's exactly what happened with InSpec. So like, you're seeing all of the compliance as code. It's written right there for you. So you're learning about infrastructure as you go. Some of these things I had never seen in my life, but it's right there in English. And so you're learning about it as you go. And then as you remediate with Chef, then it teaches you, number one, what like a hardened system looks like, and then number two, just what it all is. Okay, so so another really cool, so the first example of lending privilege was Michael, right? Like my husband, he was the first person to lend me privilege because of all of the teaching me and mentoring to me that he did. And then it was the DevOps Days organizers. And then Christoph, he started meeting with me once a week to like teach me about InSpec. And it was super cool. And whenever I'd have questions, he would answer them. And like, how cool is that? I mean, it was so generous and so like, he's a busy guy, and he did that for me. And that like totally moved the needle for me, because it was mutually beneficial, right? I was writing these tutorials for them, and then Michael met with us also, and so he was learning about what InSpec looked like at a large enterprise, and then I was, just getting to all of this extra information as well, all of this extra learning, and so so lending privilege is, it can be mutually beneficial, and so think of ways in which, like I said, that person can help you solve problems. And then also, like, what is this apprentice person that you have in mind, that each of you in this room has in mind? What are they excited about working on? So I really get excited about writing. Writing is my thing. And so Michael knew that about me, and so he leveraged that excitement, that desire to, propel me forward on this, and then create a sense of urgency. So, like, I was a stay-at-home mom at the moment, and I wasn't working, and so I had no like real deadlines or anything, but like meeting with Christoph once a week, like that gave me this sort of false sense of urgency that I wanted to deliver something that was useful to him and that, sort of paid him back for all of the time that he was spending on me. And so so that was my sense of urgency, and then I would come up with these like deadlines along the way. So I mean, I don't think that any learning can happen without a sense of urgency, without a little fire under you so that you can be motivated. And then, of course, the whole theme of all of this is lending privilege. So what's a way that you can lend your privilege, and what's a way that it can be mutually beneficial to you as well. And then discover inverted learning. With infrastructure as code, there are countless opportunities for inverted learning because like I said, it's all written out there right now like that. And so right now I'm doing this project where I'm translating a bunch of Azure ARM templates into Terraform templates. And what great learning. I've learned more about Azure just through doing this project than anything else because with infrastructure as code, you're just reading it right there in black and white. You don't have to, I don't know. Yeah, you don't have to have all this background knowledge. So another thing that, I keep talking about Wes Haig because he's so cool, but another thing that he says on his website is a lot of you might have learned technology through relative learning, which is really cool. You come up with this, and I think Kelsey kind of touched on that this morning in the keynote. He talked about how you have all this other knowledge that you learn, that you're able to adapt to this other technology, and then you kind of figure it out from there. Well, I didn't have any of that. I didn't have all of that relative knowledge. And so I had to come up with a different way of learning it. And so these people that are new to technology, they're not going to be able to learn by relative learning. You have to do it invertedly. And infrastructure as code is fantastic for that. So with InSpec, it was super cool because I was doing these workshops that Nathan Harvey put on GitHub. Just a super simple little workshop where he put all of these CIS controls or CIS benchmarks in a markdown sheet, and he said, okay, now write InSpec tests for all of this, make a profile out of it, and then harden it with Chef. And so that's what I did. I just spent my time learning through doing that. And so this was one of those controls, or this is one of those audits. And so if y'all have never seen one of these before, it's super exciting. So this top part, 1.5.1, that's just the number of it. So it'll go through and it might have I call them chapters. I don't know what they're called, but it's 7 or 8 chapters or something. And then that's just the number of the control. So this one's saying set user group owner on etcgrub.conf. And so then it gives you the level. So this one's level 1. And then description of this audit that you're doing. So we're going to just do that, set that owner and group. And then the rationale. So you're setting the owner and group to root because it prevents non-root users from changing the file. Okay, super simple. Now I understand. And the audit, you can just run that command and that will tell you if you're in compliance or not. And if you're not, then you can run this command down here to remediate it. So that tells you all the information that you need to write your InSpec profile and to remediate with Chef. And so I did just that. So there's my little InSpec profile that I had made from it, or not profile, but control. And the reason they say that it's so good for building empathy between teams is because this speaks to both the developer and the ops person and the security person because there's something for each of them in there. So the auditor sees, okay, there's that 1.5.1 that is being tested. Okay, its impact level is 1. Great. And there's its title. The description is there, I believe, for the developer or the ops person so that they know why that it even exists and so they don't skip over it or so that they can be convinced that it needs to be there. And then the security and compliance person can read it right there in plain English. Describe this file. Its owner should equal root. Its group should equal root. And it's so super simple. And so then you run it through, you can run it locally. You can do it on a remote host on SSH. You can even do it in a Docker container, whichever. So these are all the ways in which you can run it. And by the way, if you didn't know this already, you don't have to install anything on the node that's being tested. It's only on whatever's running InSpec, and so it's super lightweight and cool. And so then you get all this great output back that says, okay, these are all the tests that you ran, and this is whether it passed or failed. And then if you have failures, then you can go back and remediate them. And you might, or you might just write a hardening cookbook for all of them that does each and every one of those as well, just like this. Okay. And then also, who is using Test Kitchen in here? Raise your hand. Okay, good. There were a few hands down, but those hands that are down, please start using it tomorrow. But that was another super cool little sandbox for me, because I have this private little environment with my Vagrant machine, and I'm able to create, converge, login, verify, destroy. And so I was doing it all with that little workshop, and that's how I learned sort of enough to decide whether or not I wanted to do that. And it was super fun for me. I really loved it. And so Test Kitchen and doing this whole little experiment was a great way to see if that was good motivation for me. And so do experiments to learn what your apprentice, or to what really motivates your apprentice. And so that whole little workflow was really fun for me, and just that it was fun was good enough information for me that I could keep going. If it wasn't fun, then that would have been more information. Something that I learned along the way, however, is that you can't learn too many different things at once. And so there's this really cool talk. I know I keep on giving y'all more homework of talks to listen to, but there's this woman named Kathy Sierra who gives a talk called Making Badass Developers, and she talks about learning. It's all about learning styles and stuff. And so if you are, I should have left that on there longer so you could take a picture. I'm sorry. You're welcome. Highly recommend it though. She talks about learning, and the biggest takeaway that I got from it was this concept where you think of your learning like a Kanban board. And so you've got column A is the stuff that you want to learn or need to learn. Column B is the stuff that you're currently learning, and column C is the stuff that you've mastered. And so if you pile up too much in B, then it's not going to be really effective. You have to be moving things slowly into C, but the rate at which that happens. Like sometimes it happens very slowly, and to get it into C where you're really firmly mastered in something might take a really long time. So if you're not able to master something and move it into that C column, then you're really just going to end up with a bunch of half-assed skills and not really be effective at anything. And so I had kind of done that last summer. So I had started trying to learn too much too soon because I was super excited about it all. And so I was like, oh man, InSpec is so fun, and I want to start writing custom resources. So I was like, I need to learn Ruby. And so I started trying to learn Ruby, and then I started forgetting what I had learned in Chef. And so anyway, long story short, I slowed down, and now I'm trying to really stay in C for things. And so that's another bit of advice for as you're helping this person is let them hang out there into something. Let them sort of specialize in a skill for a little while. And a few cool things happen from that. Number one, they're able to master something. Number two, that's going to give them a ton of confidence. And then number three, you're able to utilize them faster, right? They're able to actually do work for you. And so that was something really important that I am still trying to implement. Okay, so now we're looking at July. And another sort of example of lending privilege, I had filled out a diversity scholarship last year for ChefConf and got it because my spin on my application was that I am from an art background and new to technology and all of that. And so I was awarded a scholarship to ChefConf last year. And while I was there, Matt Stratton, who has a podcast called Arrested DevOps, which I recommend because it's really cool, he had been following my blog on Twitter, and so he said, hey, I heard you're going to be at ChefConf. Do you want to be on Arrested DevOps? And so I'm there with Fletcher Nickel and John Cowie, and then there's me, and totally new. I mean, this was July last year. Think about the timeline. I just started my website in May. And so I was like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but sure, I'll go. I'm game. And so when I was there, this guy right here is Trevor Hess, and he works at Chef now, but at the time he worked at 10th Magnitude. And he saw something in me that his team was lacking. Like he saw something that I could bring to the table, and he saw that I was a willing person that was excited about learning and all of these things, and that sure, I did require quite an investment, right? Like it wasn't going to be like tomorrow that I was going to be able to be fully utilized, right? Like he saw that I did require investment, but he was willing to gamble that 10th magnitude would put that investment in me. And so he recruited me, and in August, I happened to be in Chicago for a family vacation, because 10th magnitude is in Chicago. And so I was talking to the recruiter there, and I was like, well, I'm going to be in town if you want me to come by. And no big or anything. And so they were like, yeah, sure, come on by the office and meet a few people. And so they were like a little hesitant, right? As you would be, because I was totally a noob, right? And still am. But in the car on the way over there, this was August 12th, in the car on the way over there, I was just typing out, like brainstorming everything that I could bring to the table at that company. So like I might not be able to, be completely fully utilized right away, but these are the other things that I can bring to the table that maybe you need. And so I met with them, and they decided to go ahead and take a chance on me, and that spoke so much to their vision and their values at that company, because they really put their money where their mouth was. They really care about diversity and about diversity of thought and attitude and background and things. And so they were willing to take a chance on me. And they knew that we would have to figure out things, right? Like that it wouldn't be easy onboarding, but they were up for the challenge. And so on August 25th, it was my 3 kids' first day of school, where they were all going to be at school at the same school at the same time, kindergarten, 3rd grade, and 5th grade, and my first day of work back in 10 years at 10th magnitude. And so that's my question for you, is what type of person do you want to invest in? What's your team lacking? How can you find this person also if you don't already know them? Like what hole can you fill at your organization? And so then, DevOps Days, we had our event in September, and 10th Magnitude was a sponsor, and I was so proud to represent them as an actual employee there, because I felt like what they did by hiring me showed so much of their values and their character. And so really to sort of round out what I had been saying, my main points are, actually I haven't talked about pairing and mentorship yet. Okay, so while I was at 10th Magnitude, or while I have been at 10th Magnitude, we've seen that like classroom learning, basically online courses and things like that, it means nothing unless you're being mentored and you're paired with a senior lead who can really help you through all of those problems. That is the best learning. And so sure, it's going to take longer, and sure, they're going to make some mistakes, and sure, like I can't be client facing right away, right? Because I'm going to say something dumb probably. And but that's why you have that senior tech lead who can show you how it's done and mentor you through it, so that you will be that awesome, badass consultant at some point, you know? So that I should say it in first person. So so super, super, super important is that mentorship aspect of it. And you can invest in somebody and spend that time and just like be so rewarded by watching their growth also, because I promise you, like if they're a person that really is worth investing in, they're gonna reward you for that. They're going to work so hard for you in response, I promise you. And then also inverted learning, like keep on thinking of those ways in which somebody that's totally new to technology can learn about technology invertedly. And then the specialization that I talked about, help them to move things into that C column by really specializing and just staying put on one particular technology for a while. And then, of course, if you got nothing else out of this, lending your platform. Just really, each and every person in this room has privilege and has a platform. And I do myself, and I'm looking for ways in which I can loan my platform to other people as well, because it can really move the needle for somebody. And honestly, like when you think about it, having a career in technology moves the needle for a lot of people, because it's not only the rewarding parts of it, like it's super fun and super rewarding, but it's also like an income bracket that a lot of people don't have access to, and you could help them have access to that. And how cool is that? I mean, that can change somebody's life, right? So now I've created my own list of credits. I am on there at the very end, but these are all of the different people that have helped me in some way and who have either loaned their platform or inspired me or just been a really integral part of my journey. And I would not be standing here today and without all of these people, and I'm just so grateful. And I have my own credit now, and I'm glad that I could share my story with you. So thank you so much for letting me be here and share that with you. And if anybody has any questions, let me know now, I guess, because I have a couple of minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Did I get chucked into the deep end right away when I started at 10th magnitude? No, not really. It was honestly a little challenging to be able to find that way of onboarding me, because I was such a sort of different candidate, a different type of person. And so I had a couple of projects in the very beginning where I was being paired with a good tech lead, and I was learning a ton. And then a few of the chef related projects had dried up, and so then they had to put me on something else, and we had some challenges. We had some time where I was on the bench. We had some time where I had to do a lot of online learning, and then we realized, we can't do this anymore because this is not working at all, like online courses and things like that. I need to be on a project to learn, right? And so we were like, okay, we backpedaled and we quit doing that. And so yeah, and really it's okay if somebody like me is chucked into the deep end, because as long as I have a strong tech lead that's mentoring me, I'm going to be able to, do what I need to do, because it's all, it's just learning as you go. So, yeah, thank you.
I just want to thank you because, my company had tasked me to do the InSpec stuff and install compliance, and we found your website, and it helped us so much.
Awesome. I'm so glad. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Sasha. Have a question. What challenges do you face as a woman in DevOps, if any, and how do you overcome them?
You know what?
Is it DevOps to DevOps?
Honestly, she said challenges as a woman in DevOps. I have found the DevOps community to be so welcoming and really inclusive. And every now and then I'll run into somebody that, they immediately assume I'm in marketing or in sales or something like that, or an account manager or whatever, that's fine. It's because I wear a dress. And I wear makeup and do my hair, but honestly, y'all, I am in either workout clothes or pajamas every day for work because I work from home, which I love. And when I go to a conference, I want to wear a dress, so whatever. But anyway, I say kudos to the DevOps community because I find it very inclusive. Obviously, it's still predominantly white male, and that's just the way it is, but I see so much desire and so much intentionality about making it more inclusive and diverse. So I'm really hopeful, and I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, cool. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.